You never know how a chance encounter can change everything, until it's too late. Tracy Ocasio, 27, smart, emotional, with a bright future ahead of her. One evening in May 2009, she left her house to watch a basketball game, as she had done hundreds of times before. She walked into a familiar bar where everyone knew her name. But this time, she never came back. Her family, her friends, the entire Orlando, Florida community waited for weeks, months, years, hoping that one day Tracy would walk through the door, saying she was just going somewhere to think. But that day never came. What's scarier, the police weren't looking for a suspect. He was arrested. He was in jail. But no one knew where Tracy was. She was missing, her body was never found, and the last person to be with her, James Hataway, remained silent until the end. This was not a simple case. It was a maze of lies, missed opportunities, and unsolved assaults. Ignored. And even whispered, "Don't make me kill you." Tracy Eileen Ocasio was born in 1982 in Ocoee, Florida, the beloved daughter of Joseph and Elizabeth Ocasio. Her family often calls her Daddy's Girl, because she and her father have a special, irreplaceable bond. She loves animals, has raised lizards, scorpions, and is especially attached to her cat Cookie. Tracy loves reading history books, from World War II to the Roman Empire, and enjoys making handmade jewelry in her spare time. After graduating, she worked as a waitress at a local restaurant and is taking online courses with the dream of becoming an X-ray technician. Tracy was engaged, but later broke up and moved back in with her parents, where she was always welcomed with open arms. One of the things that brought her and her father closer together was their love of basketball. They cheered for the Orlando Magic, never missing a game. And at night on May 26, 2009, the Magic were playing the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference semifinals, an event Tracy couldn't miss. Tracy had planned to watch the game with her father. But Joseph had been called to work. So Tracy decided to go to her favorite bar, the Florida Taproom, to watch the game alone. It was a place she frequented. She knew a lot of the people there, sat in the same place, ordered the same drink. There was no reason to worry. But the only thing different that day was she left the bar with a strange man. Security cameras captured Tracy, in a black top, black jeans and a white and blue hat, leaving the bar with a bald man around 1 a.m. She didn't appear to be under any pressure. But then, no one saw her again. Tracy's mother, Liz, was used to receiving text messages from her daughter when she returned home safely from outings. But that night, no text. No call. No sign. She kept calling all night, no answer. When Tracy didn't return the next morning, the family called the police. At first, there was hope. Could Tracy have slept over at a friend's house? Could her phone battery have died? But all bets were off when her car was found, abandoned in a secluded area near the home of a man named James Hataway. Police identified James Hataway as the last person seen with Tracy. When questioned, James said matter-of-factly, "She just drove me home and then drove off." No one believed it. Tracy's car was found just 150 meters from James's house, on a dark, unlit street. A place that, according to her father, Tracy would never go. It was too dark, and she was afraid of the dark. The front seat of the car was reclined, as if someone was searching for something behind. Or dragging someone out. The scary thing was, James was not alone in the Tracy case. A year earlier, he had attacked another girl, Rachel Clark, in a similar way, asked for a ride home, hugged her, then strangled her. Rachel was lucky to escape when a passerby shouted at James to run away. but no one caught him. No one thought he would continue, and then Tracy disappeared. Where did Tracy Ocasio, 27 years old, positive, loved, passionate about studying and sports, go after that night? The last person to be with her is in prison for another crime, but has not yet been charged in connection with her disappearance. No body, no direct evidence, no confession, just a broken family, a father still searching for his son every day, and a question no one dares to answer: is Tracy still alive, or is the truth buried deep with James Hataway's secrets? There are people who appear kind on the outside, but in their minds are a bottomless darkness. When the police found James Hataway, the last man seen with Tracy, they had no idea that they had just opened the door to a series of intertwined, haunting, and terrifying crimes. At first, he was cooperative. He said Tracy had just dropped him off and left. But little by little, the pieces began to fall apart, layers of disguise began to peel away, revealing a much more terrifying truth. Tracy's car was found just a few hundred feet from James's house. There were no street lights. The front seat was reclined all the way, unusual for a girl as neat as Tracy, but all that was just suspicion. No blood, no physical evidence. They needed more to convict James. When they checked Tracy's phone, they found that the last signal had come from 8:30 the next morning, from the same area as James's house. Based on that, the police obtained a search warrant for his house. The result? No trace of Tracy, but they found a large amount of drugs. James was arrested on drug charges. But the Tracy case remained unsolved. When questioned again, James maintained his statement: "I just asked Tracy to drive me home, then we parted ways at the door." But then, a witness appeared. This person confirmed that he had seen Tracy go all the way into James' house after dropping him off. Another witness revealed James had offered Tracy drugs, but she refused and left immediately afterwards. That is, James had lied about the whole "driving me home and we parted ways at the door" story. That was the first lie, and not the last. And then, as the police dug into James's past, things began to make sense, and startling. James Hataway was no newcomer to the criminal scene. As a teenager, he had a history of kidnapping, violence, and drug use. He worked odd jobs, lived with his father, and helped clean lakes and dump trash in remote areas, a detail that would become important later. And when Tracy disappeared? James was on bail for another crime, but what really shook the police was an incident that had happened a year earlier: the attack on a girl named Rachel Clark. Rachel had met James at a bar. He asked her to take him home. She agreed. When they got there, James hugged her, then suddenly threw her to the ground, choked her, and whispered, "Don't make me kill you." Rachel struggled, screamed. A passerby heard her scream. James ran away. Rachel survived, with a bruised neck, a scratched face. She reported it. But James was never arrested for it. If Rachel hadn't escaped, would she have become the first Tracy? If the police had taken the case seriously, would Tracy still be alive? Nearly 2 years after Tracy disappeared, in February 2011, police searched Carter Lake near where James had lived, an area where search teams had found nothing. The water had receded. And then they found a human skull, parts of a spinal column, and then a wallet, a phone, and an identification card. The name on the card read, Christopher George. That wasn't Tracy, but Christopher had also disappeared in 2009, a few months before Tracy. And the last person seen with him, James Hataway. In the midst of the investigation, Tracy's father, Joseph, received an anonymous phone call. The caller said James had killed not just one person, but at least 3, and that he had a female accomplice. The caller said the bodies were hidden in the lake along with the murder weapon. Officials couldn't let it go. They expanded the search to other lakes around Apopka and Ocoee. A witness claimed to have seen James and Christopher together near Carter Lake a few days before Christopher went missing. And that night, a police officer saw James and another man coming out of the woods, near the area where Christopher's body was found. When questioned, James said his companion was just high on drugs, and that they were helping him. No one checked. Only later did the man, Christopher George, come forward. The police decided to charge James with the attack on Rachel Clark, because it was the most conclusive evidence. They couldn't let him go free. In May 2011, the trial began. Rachel bravely took the stand. She recounted the details of the fateful night, James's cold gaze, his hand around her neck, his whispered threats. The courtroom fell silent as photos of her injuries were shown. It didn't take long for the jury to decide. James Hataway was guilty of attempted murder, kidnapping, and robbery. He was sentenced to life in prison. Before he was led away, James took the microphone and apologized. "I didn't mean to kill her, but I'm sorry." Everyone present, from the victims' families to the prosecutors, felt sick. A cold apology could not erase the trauma, could not undo what Tracy, Rachel, or Christopher had endured. But even after that verdict, James has never been charged in Tracy's disappearance or Christopher's death. No concrete evidence, no eyewitnesses, and Tracy has never been found. There is nothing more devastating than knowing who did it and not being able to prove it. When James Hataway was sentenced to life in prison for the attack on Rachel Clark, it was a much-needed victory for the law enforcement and a rare moment of solace for Tracy Ocasio's family. But for the parents of a girl who has been missing for 15 years, justice has yet to be served. No Tracy, no body, no confession. There was only one man behind bars, and countless unanswered questions. In the years that followed, Tracy's parents, Joseph and Liz, fought on. They went on television, plastered pictures of their daughter everywhere, organized search parties with volunteers. They believed that if no one spoke up, the case would be forgotten. And if they stayed silent, Tracy's name would fade into obscurity, just like the place where she had disappeared. But the harder they tried, the more pain they felt. One of the things that made Tracy's case so heartbreaking was that all the clues led to James, but none of them were enough to prosecute. There was the car abandoned near James's house. There was the lie about being just dropped off. There was the witness who said Tracy had been in his house. There was the location where Tracy's phone last pinged nearby. There was a crime pattern that almost matched Tracy's and Rachel Clark's. But there was no body, no DNA, no confession. The law requires evidence, not just intuition or anger. One of the most haunting things is that no one knows where Tracy is. There is no grave to lay flowers on. There is no funeral to cry one last time. Just an empty room, an uninhabited bed, an ownerless cat, and a family stuck in the question, what happened? Tracy's father, Joseph, once tearfully shared that, if he had not had to go to work that day, he would have gone to the bar with his daughter. And who knows, just that small change could have saved her. That torment has followed him for the rest of his life. In 2015, nearly 4 years after his conviction, James Hataway unexpectedly appealed. He claimed that he was forced to waive his right to a speedy trial, that his lawyer did not properly represent his interests. The court agreed to consider it, and so, in a short period of time, those who had been happy to see James in prison forever were faced with the question, could he ever be released? Fortunately, the sentence was upheld. James is still in prison for life, at least for Rachel. But what about Tracy? What about Christopher? And the names that have never been confirmed? The answer remains, not enough evidence. The George family, Christopher's, and the Ocasio family, Tracys, now have a common enemy. What they don't have is complete justice. Both parents believe James killed their children. But without a body, and no clear cause of death, there's nothing they can do but wait for a confession, wait for a new witness, wait for a miracle, or a mistake by the perpetrator. For 15 years, the Tracy case has never been officially closed. Some investigators have quietly pursued every lead. Detective David Gray, one of the longest-serving investigators, once said, "We know who did it. The problem is proving it in court." He and his colleagues still trace anonymous calls, retrace old statements, check James's haunts, but there are no breakthroughs. For the Tracy family, time does not heal, it only makes the wounds more insidious. Joseph still lives in the same house. Every day, he still walks past his daughter's room, where the items are still in the same place they were when Tracy disappeared. Liz keeps her phone with her, just in case anyone calls and says they know what happened. In an interview, she once said, "Being the parent of a missing person, you never have closure. You just live a story that never ends." Tracy Ocasio was born in 1982. She was 27 when she went missing. Now, if she were still alive, she would be in her 40s, a medical professional, a wife, a mother, or a girl who loved the Orlando Magic and was immersed in history books, but instead of living that life, she was erased from the world by someone who didn't deserve a second chance, and for her parents, the only thing they want isn't revenge, it's to know the truth. Police are still taking any information related to the Tracy Ocasio case. Even after more than a decade, they believe there is someone out there who knows something, but has never spoken up. If you are that person, or if you've ever heard a drunken confession, a story that no one believes, speak up. One word could end a 15-year nightmare. A life can be wiped out in a matter of minutes. But the suffering of a loved one, it will last forever. The Tracy Ocasio case is more than just a family tragedy. It is a warning to us all about the fragility of life, about dangerous people lurking beneath the surface, and about the gaps in our justice system, where a person can be lost forever, while the suspect remains silent, uncharged. We may not have the answers today, but at least let's keep Tracy's story alive, because justice should not have a deadline.